Hey there, TigerShark here again with Okano. I'm making an attempt at an actual long-form video today. Let's see if I can make it past the 4-minute mark. Anyway, recently I played and reviewed the demo for a horror game called Somnifuge. I bought the full game and I played the whole thing. It inspired me to write an actual video essay, and boy do I have a lot of thoughts, so here goes. I'll talk about Somnifuge and the horror genre in general. Potential spoilers for Somnifuge ahead. I'll warn you again for any big ones. So my experience with horror games is that I'm an absolute baby. I love the idea of them, but in practice they're generally just too much for me. I tried playing Amnesia and Outlast and tons of others, but I could never get far past the tutorials. It's really just jump scares that get me, and the anticipation of jump scares. Jump scares are the cheapest and worst form of horror in my opinion. It's not real fear, it's being startled by a loud noise, and I don't enjoy that. So the main way I experience horror games is through YouTubers like Manly Badass Hero or IGP. The demo of Somnifuge didn't really have any jump scares, which I really enjoyed. The full game did have a few though, so be warned about that if you want to play it. There is one thing that horror games like this have a tendency to do, and it always kills the game for me. It's when the game just goes totally off the rails and just insane stuff happens. It's going to be hard for me to translate the thoughts I have into words, so bear with me here. I really liked the first half of Somnifuge. In fact, I even put the demo as number 3 on my top 5 indie games of the last 6 months I played. The vibes are creepy, and you really have no idea what's going on in the mansion. You don't know if you're going to get pursued by a monster, or if it's just going to be a puzzle game or a walking simulator. I went into this game blind, by the way. I didn't watch any trailers, and I only skimmed the description. The puzzles, graphics, and atmosphere are what pulled me in at the start. The animations and sound design are really on point as well. But maybe that's not enough to carry a game all the way through, or maybe devs just think that's not enough and feel like they have to add more. Because just like many other games I've played or just watched on YouTube, this one goes absolutely crazy at a certain point. What I'm trying to say is when the horror feels believable by the rules of the game world as we understand them, then it stays scary. Once things start happening, like getting teleported to a small box, looking up to see a monster, then getting sucked into its throat, at the end of which is a body attached to the wall by roots or tendrils or something, which you touch, then you get surrounded by dozens of large floating eyeballs. I forget exactly how that scene went, but I hope you get my point. Once that happens, then it's like all bets are off. Literally anything can happen now, and I just lose the sense of grounding, if that makes any sense. I'm not exploring a creepy mansion anymore, even though the game brings me back to it. Now I'm theorizing about how the dev is going to mess with me. I'm no longer immersed, and I'm just trying to figure out the plot twist. Is it all in my mind as an allegory for guilt or depression or something? Are the monsters actually monsters, or are they a figment of my character's imagination? Is the character I'm playing even real? Is the mansion even real? I realize this may literally just be a me problem. Those types of games seem popular, so maybe no one else is bothered by this. But hey, I'm the one making the video. If you disagree, you can argue in the comments, or go make your own video about how much you love these tropes and how TigerSharks aren't actually able to type or play video games because they don't have fingers. I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Now I'm just thinking about drawing a TigerShark with fingers. I'm not saying all the things this dev did are bad. I enjoyed the game. It genuinely had some of my favorite puzzles I've seen in a game. But they kinda lost me when it stopped being Resident Evil 1 and started being whatever it turned into. I was hoping I'd come up with a brilliant comparison there, but oh well. I also wish the story was a little less incomprehensible. Maybe I'm just kinda dumb, but I didn't understand at all what was happening. Even the twist at the very end didn't feel like enough of an explanation for me. Or maybe it was just meant to tell you that nothing in the game meant anything. I don't know, man. I failed the poetry unit in English 102, so obviously I'm not good at interpreting other people's work. There were definitely some things I missed, especially considering I picked up at least one item I never used. I want to go back and get all the achievements, but at the same time I don't think I want to go through the second half of the game again. I'll talk more specifically about the game itself. Spoilers from here on out. I'll try not to spoil puzzle solutions, but I'm going to talk about a lot of the puzzles and a few significant moments. You start outside a mansion, then you go inside, and basically you're on your own. No guidance except a note in your inventory that says Free S. On the back of the note is a pattern that you'll need quite a bit later in the game, so take note of that. Pretty straightforward at first, there's only one real direction you can go. As you traverse the mansion, you'll find more puzzles and items. The items are pretty much always keys to solving more puzzles. There are a few VHS tapes you can bring back to the first room that will either help you solve a puzzle or just confuse you more. Then you can get a flashlight from the attic where you'll encounter monsters for the first time. Some of the puzzles are actually really cryptic and there's no real guidance for them. I'm pretty good at puzzles, but some of them took me a really long time. You can click a hint button 5 times from the menu. I only did it twice, and the second time the hint was 100% useless, so I still had to figure that one out on my own. The first time the hint just confirmed one of the things I thought I had already tried, but I guess I just didn't do it right or whatever. Anyway, after you get the flashlight, you can move on to new areas, one of which is the repeating room puzzle, which was the first time I used a hint. Another of which, of course, is a sewer section. It's a little bit maze-like, and you have to open a certain number of empty chests to open the doors. The whole time being pursued by a mimic chest, which I thought was very funny. It's not so much a puzzle section as just basically finding keys. I do really like that each area you go into has some kind of puzzle and often introduces a new threat or some kind of danger element. The key you find in the sewer opens the elevator, and man, I was not prepared for the unlocking animation. I was laughing so hard my wife was concerned. I think horror games should just do ridiculous stuff like this sometimes to lighten the mood. In the library, we have yet another new threat and a new puzzle. The bookshelves are a maze, and you have to find 3 pieces of a device that will give you a puzzle that will show you the combination to the planetarium when you solve it. Inside the maze, there are floating eyeballs, and if they see you, you'll be chased by a rampaging something. You can actually see it patrolling around the library, but I had my recording paused when I saw it. Anyway, something is preventing you from going upstairs, so we'll have to come back to that later. The planetarium introduces an upgrade to the flashlight that allows you to see invisible things. After an unnecessary cheese sequence, of course. I'm not sure why that happened. I guess the dev decided you needed to pay for your upgrade with a few years off of your life. But now we can see the weird ghostly plant thing that's blocking the stairs, and we can creep around it. A few more clever puzzles and nonsense sequences later, we finally get to the abandoned hospital that seems to be underneath the mansion. Here, you'll be pursued by a crazed doctor or something like that. There's always a sound and visual cue when she spawns in though, so you have time to sprint for the nearest locker to hide in. I had a harder time in here than I did in the library because the library has a map, and here you just have to figure out your bearings yourself. You have to find 3 of the loudest printers I've ever heard in my life that will give you hints for a code that you need to progress. I actually found 2 of the hints, and then I brute forced the code from there using the information I had before finding a 3rd hint afterwards. Up until this point, the deviations from the main gameplay had been minor, and all seemed like dreams the protagonist was having, but this is where the game just really went nuts. You get a second upgrade for the flashlight, which replaces your hand, and can now shoot a laser. You get some more puzzles and actual combat sections for some reason. 1 or 2 of these puzzles took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure out, particularly the lamppost puzzle. But this is where the game really lost me. Things were just happening and I didn't know why or what was going on. It stopped being a fun puzzle to solve and started just being the next thing I had to do to get to the next thing so I could finish the game. Maybe I'm just an idiot and couldn't put together the information I had to understand the story, or maybe none of it really meant anything at all. But here's the final spoiler, skip to the time on screen if you don't want to hear this part. After the weird boss fight, the game seemingly crashes and your character takes off a VR headset. Seems that you were playing as a game developer the whole time who was testing the game they just made. I'll admit, of all the predictions I made, I didn't see that one coming. I just feel so conflicted on this game. The demo was incredible, and I really did like most of the full game. The problem is in the expectation, I suppose. I'm going into it expecting something specific, but the dev has other ideas in mind. Maybe they didn't think the mansion and puzzles could stand on their own as a game, but I'd have loved for that part of the game to go on for much longer and just remove all of the weirdness with the eyeballs and the machines. I do feel like I missed something that explains the story more, but I don't know. Maybe the ending was just the dev's way of saying that they ran out of ideas and just threw together some stuff. I bet I'm missing an alternate ending too, considering there's a few achievements I didn't get. I don't know what else to say at this point. I still liked the game and would recommend it. I just think there are some elements of the horror genre I could do without, and Somnifuge had the potential to be the perfect horror game for me personally. I think the dev had enough good ideas and puzzles, though I'd have liked more fleshed out story. But maybe they felt like it just wasn't enough and they needed it to be some crazy mind freak kind of thing. Or maybe this was their vision from the start. Either way, I guess that's all I've got. If I keep going, I'll just be repeating myself even more than I already have. Maybe horror just isn't my genre. I may be in a minority and this whole video will be completely unrelatable to literally everyone else on Earth. Who knows? I guess let me know your thoughts in the comments. So that's all for this one, and as always, I hope you have a spectacular day. I have other channels and projects that I would love for you to check out. I have a second channel called Drawing with TigerShark where I have a variety of drawing content. I have an EP on Spotify called 5,555 Miles as my one-man band called Power Mouse. And finally, I have a clothing brand called Studio Duck Apparel featuring original artwork that I create myself. The links to these things will all be in the description.